Good afternoon. How is everybody doing? What's up, MLA? Mr. Format. What's happening, brother? Doing good. Good to hear. Good to hear. How's been kind of a crazy week. I'm just gonna shut my phone off here. Otherwise, we're gonna hear this thing constantly. Poggers. Can I adjust my lights? My lights seem really bright for some reason. I'm gonna turn those bad boys down. Oh, that's better. Much better. Yeah, perfect. The nice thing about having remote controlled lights, you can turn them up and turn them down as you need. So how was everyone's weekend? There's only a couple of you here. We're going to hang out for a few minutes, wait for more folks to show up. I think we got a pretty good topic today. I think we might actually get Kate in here today too, our counselor. I'm hoping. Depends. I'm not sure what she's up to right at the moment, but I know she's been invited and she's hoping to get in. Mo better. Just went and had breakfast with a great friend, as I do every Monday before the stream. We had a great conversation, and it's one of those things where if you haven't, or if you don't have someone that you can meet with on a regular basis and just chat with and say, hey, how are things going? How was your week? How was, my week was great. My week was bad, blah, blah, blah. I think that's one of the great things about my relationship with this guy. He's an older guy. He's not exactly my generation, but he's turned into a great friend and someone that I've really learned to trust and to lean on in my hard times. So, yeah, in good times too. It's fun to just get excited with somebody and say, hey, this thing's happening. It's awesome. But, yeah, especially, given today's topic, the whole idea around being in relationship and in caring for each other and really in the context of today, talking about loving lavishly, I think it's important to understand that you don't do that alone. It's kind of like a two-person at least thing. You kind of have to have someone to love lavishly. Because, you can love yourself lavishly. You can. Like it's unhealthy at times, It's one of those things where you've got to be willing to put yourself in a spot where you can love others. But so how's MLA? What's going on, buddy? How are things for you? Glad you can make it to the stream today. I haven't seen you a whole lot. You've been around quite a bit. I've seen you in other streams and stuff. How things been going? Gonna fiddle with some other stuff too, actually, before we get going here. We've got some pretty neat, hopefully some neat quotes today that'll make people think. Kind of excited for some of that. I'm actually using notes today. What the heck's that about? Oh, my glasses are bugging me. They're itching, making my head itch. They're like a different type of glass. They have I don't know if you can see that or not. They have like a bendy arm, right? They don't actually go around your ear like normal glasses do. So I'm having to kind of get used to them. Looking for a better job. What's wrong with the job you got? Oh, tired of retail? Yeah, fair enough. I did retail for a number of years. What kind of retail are you in, Emily? I work for a company in Canada called Battery Plus. Sold batteries plus things. I literally know every battery on the planet. Oh, sure. Yeah. You say worked at. Did you resign? Move on to better things? Yeah, I worked at a... Oh, did they? Oh, that sucks. Where in Toronto were you at? So you know what, if you're in Toronto, you should know Battery Plus because that's where I worked. I ran 5 of their stores. And this was 20 years ago, but I'm not sure who bought. I think somebody might have bought Battery Plus. But it was in the Pickering Town Center or Queen in Ossington. Yeah. It was in Pickering Town Center. It was in Oshawa. It was in Toronto in the Eaton Center. It was out in Markham and all those places. Emma, I don't know if you know that. I'm from Bowmanville. That's where I moved from to come here. Are you still in Toronto? In the Queen and Ossington area? Yeah, I worked right downtown Toronto for a little while. One of the last jobs I have was in, you live closer to the lake? Yeah. Yeah, I had several jobs in Toronto. Worked for Coca-Cola in Brampton. What else? Gee whiz. Warehouser. Place called Quality Meat Packers. That's right downtown Toronto. That's like a 5-minute, probably 10-minute walk from the CN Tower. It's a pork slaughterhouse right downtown Toronto. It's the funniest thing. It's literally right on the train tracks. So,
thanks for tuning in.
Who's that? Renee. Who's Renee? Renee, nice to have you. Oh, Renee Fournier. Oh, is this like the Renee Fournier? Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the follow, Renee. It is a very weird place for a meat packing plant, and not a small one. It was massive. So yeah, it's one of those cool things about Toronto. You just don't know what you're gonna run into, besides an amazing Italian restaurant in a little hole in the wall on a little side street somewhere. You also get a meat packing plant right downtown Toronto. You know what it's really close to? It's really close to, you'd think it'd be in Etobicoke or something like that. It's really close to, there's a fort or something on the north side of the tracks, and literally on the south side of the tracks is the meat packing plant. It's kind of funny. But anyways, onward and upward, as they say. So yeah, I actually moved from Toronto to come here for school and and ultimately to start this thing that we're doing now. So yeah, born and raised in Windsor, and then moved to Toronto with my family, to start my family. And then, moved here. It's pretty cool. But so today's topic, what are we talking about? Something that I think we all know. How to love, maybe? Question mark. Do you? It sounds simple. It sounds like something that everybody should do well. Something everyone should be in tune with. But I think the reality is, I think we underestimate the power that it has. It's a joke a little bit. This idea of the power of love. You can satirize it a little bit and make it a joke. But I think the reality is, and again, I put everything in the context of Rise Above and what we do here. Because people always ask, what's the secret sauce? Why does Rise Above work? What is it about the work that you do that is so appealing to the kids and whatnot? Why has it been so effective in the community? It's easy, I think. I mean, we don't need we've done a doctoral research paper, but but I don't think you need to. I think the reality is we love well. And I think in the grand scheme of, when you think of this, the over-the-moon successes that we've had, where we have triumphed the most. And I say we. When I say we, I'm talking about the student and the staff. I'm not talking about the staff right? It's a both and, because you can't, as I said before, you can't love alone. It has to be mutual. It has to be reciprocal. To love well, it isn't just about the fact that I love you. The reality is you have to love in return for love to be beneficial. Where people see forward momentum from it. Now, having said that, very often loving well starts with a very one-sided thing. Where I love you and you may not either understand or realize it yet, or even get to a place where my loving you is beneficial, because you may resist it. And the reality is it may stay there. Because sometimes you can love somebody and they never reciprocate. Truth. I'm sure it happens all the time. Think of all those boys in high school. Fall head over heels for a girl, and all of a sudden she's like, yeah, I want nothing to do with you, buddy. I'm going to college. See you later. Bye-bye. Right? But I think part of the reality is when you think of the society that we live in now, it's very different from, even 20 or 30 years ago. Even if you go back 50 years, holy crow, it's very different. We live in a society now of instant gratification, where I want it now, I get it now. 2-day prime shipping. I don't even have to get out of my house to get it now. This coming from a guy that spends $30,000 a year on Amazon, literally. Right? We're used to walking to McDonald's or a restaurant, and if we don't have our food in minutes, we're tapping our toe and wanting to talk to a manager. The whole idea of, and I'm going to use a term used in by one of my pastors recently, the bottom line is just get to it. Instant everything. I don't think that it's wrong for me to say that our world right now is built on efficiencies. The joke is that, back in the day, the Germans were the most efficient at everything. Well, the reality is the Western world especially, is moving towards a sacrificial efficiency. Understand what I said there? Sacrificial efficiency. In other words, we're willing to give up something knowingly in order to achieve this efficiency, this bottom line. We got to get the bottom line.
Okay.
Almost a year nappy.
Everything's
Buddy.
Right. Everything is awesome.
I love that you're here, Nappy. I'm still waiting for your phone call, buddy. I'm excited to hear what you got to say. Thanks for popping in, and thanks for your resubscription, man. 11 whole freaking months. Thanks, buddy. Tomo, you are the besto. The reality is, very often when we talk about relationships, when we talk about anything, we're asking, how do we get there as quickly as possible? Take streaming even. People talk about, how do I get to affiliate as quick as possible? What can I do to circumvent whatever needs to be circumvented to get to that place where, I have that great title of affiliate. The reality is, you don't do it without relationships. How do I get that idea of get to the bottom line? I mean, the reality is, very often when you come to my streams, you're thinking, okay, Neil, just get to the point. You're saying all this stuff. You talk for 2 hours. What's your point? You're going to have to wait for it. I'm going to get to it. But the reality is we're sick of waiting. We're impatient. I think very often especially when you're struggling, whether it's you, someone you love, or even someone you work with. In our case, kids we work with. We have an expectation of where we want them to be. I'm going to take my watch off. It's bugging me. When a student comes in, we want them to do well. We want them to succeed. We want them to get a certain amount of schoolwork done. We want them to do blah. Right? We don't want the kids to fail any more than they already have. We want them to turn a certain degree and focus on success. We want them to move forward and not backwards. That's the goal. That's the hope. Right? And I actually have notes today, so if you're wondering why I keep looking down, I'm looking at my notes. I mean, in that context, my question to you is, what should define your relationship? Right? When has your relationship arrived? You know what I mean? I gotta fix this cord. It keeps hitting my mic and it's driving me nuts. I don't think that helped it, but we'll make it work. I mean, how do you take what you have, the passion, the love that you have for the student, your son, your daughter, your friend, your mom, your dad, whatever it is, how do you take that thing right? And multiply it? How do you create success? Is it just relationship? Is it just, hey, I'm here? I don't know. I think there might be something more to it. The idea of that, is there something more foundational, more important, more critical? I think so. I mean, it sounds like, it sounds oversimple. It sounds like it's not profound. I mean, I think you can all probably answer the question already. Right? This idea of loving each other well. I mean, as the title says, hint, the answer is the title. For us, and what we do, the idea of multiplication has to do a lot with when students start to reciprocate that relational loving lavishly that we're talking about. A lot of the students that come, a lot of the people that we bump into that want to get involved, that are involved, they've lost the ability to love lavishly. In a lot of cases, to love at all. They're angry. They're frustrated. They're in despair a lot of times. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get out of this hole, get whatever it might be. You know what I mean? You get to a point where, that wounded animal type scenario where you're kind of backed into a corner and all you can do is survive. And you have to get to a point where you can calm things down to where you can even just begin to receive, let alone to give love and to love lavishly. Yeah, come on in. Come on in, Kate. The puppy's here too. Hi, puppy. So we're gonna have a seat. So I'm gonna go to multicam here. Give me a second, folks. In studio. So there's a couple things you can do. You might be able to see on stream. I don't know if the computer's on or not over there.
It is.
Okay. There, you see you?
Not yet.
Give it a sec. So if you want to pull the mic in, so pull the mic kind of around. There you go. It's in front. So push it down a little bit.
Oh, yeah, I see you.
Good. There you go. So now, and then we'll turn your mic on and turn you up.
Okay.
So everybody, welcome Kate. Kate, welcome.
Thank you.
So the topic today, and is your puppy okay in there? He's going to be?
He's
All right.
good. He's going to lay down.
All right. So first of all, explain who you got with you. I think that's important.
Okay. So let's see if I can get him up here on my lap. Come here. Come here. Up here. Come on. Oh, okay. I
there.
don't know if you can see him.
Yeah, you
This
can see
is
him.
Cash. This is my dog. He's my personal dog. And he's been trained to be a therapy dog. So he goes with me. He comes with me to the school to see the students.
Yeah.
And I see clients privately with him too. And he kind of just sits with them and just kind of provides a little bit of love.
Yeah.
Um,
His name is Cash.
his name is Cash. Yep.
Look at the eyes. You can't see the eyes.
He's a handsome guy. Yeah.
So Nappy and MLA say hi, by the way.
Hello. Hello. Yeah. So he just, so he just kind of sits and just provides a little, another layer of comfort.
The third dimension.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So kids love it when I bring him in here.
So for those of you that have not met Kate yet, and I'm assuming that's everybody. Cause
Yeah.
this is, your
This
first
is
time
my
on
first time.
stream.
Yep.
Kate is our basically in-house counselor here at Rise Above.
Mm-hmm.
Kate meets with all of our students on a regular basis and kind of is the, I don't know what you call it. I call it like a gateway to a lot of exploration for students. Just gives them an opportunity to kind of explore and to move into a space that really does allow them to start to think through and process.
Yep.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So there's also a set of headphones if you want to be able to hear.
Yeah. That's great. Let's do that.
I'll turn your sound up so you can actually, so you should be able to hear me and you.
Yep.
That way.
Cool.
A little more clear.
Sure.
But so today we're talking about loving lavishly and how a lot of our students kind of are in a spot where they may not know how to receive love well, and then in turn be able to reciprocate that love.
Sure.
So I just was about to make the point that people don't necessarily go to where the action is; they go to where the love is. Because one of the things we get here at Rise Above very often is, how come your attendance rate for this population is so high? Because kids show up. The reality is kids show up.
They do.
It's not always where we want it to be, but in the grand scheme of where students are in their traditional settings to where they are here, we blow them away by 30, 40, 50% in some cases with regards to our attendance rates.
Sure.
And so my initial response to that is, well, because we love the kids and they know it.
Right.
So you've been here now for how long?
Since October of 2019. So.
And so in those 4.5, 5 months, what are the things that you have seen? Hey, what's up, Dingle? What are some of the things that you have seen that you think is different or sets us apart or is kind of like the secret sauce of
Sure. Of Rise Above.
Yeah.
What makes us so awesome.
Yeah. That's a great way of putting that.
I mean, it's true. Since I've been here, I have just noticed that there's just a lot more opportunity for the students to sort of take a minute to decompress kind of from their home lives, transitioning to the school, but is it really a school or is it just more of a safe haven, a school that they can come to and they can talk about whatever they went through last night or over the weekend. they have a calming space. You know, I think that's a lot of it. And when you think about here versus traditional school, the hustle and bustle, the 300 or 400 students that are roaming the hallways and all that sensory overload, and kids that have been exposed to trauma, a lot of that is sensory trauma.
Yeah.
And I think that it can be a lot. I mean, it just can be. And I think here it's just more of they look forward to coming here. They look forward to having that one-on-one time with whether it's you or, the teachers or myself, whatever it is, there's a lot of people that they can go to. Yeah. And I think that that's really important to them.
So you talk about sensory overload. Do you think, I use the analogy oftentimes of like kind of a wounded animal when the dog's been hit by the side of the road or something to that effect. I mean, there's no calming that dog, even to its owner, very often will be like biting and things of that nature. And I think that's what very often is mistaken by people who aren't aware of the situation or don't know. Like you talk about a teacher that has 30 kids in a classroom. You know, when they get a student that lashes out or is unproductive or sleeping in class, you know, if you don't recognize the signs, you can try and pet a wounded animal, you know, and you're going to get bit.
Right, exactly.
Right, and I think very often for us, the big difference is we have the time to notice.
Yes. Yep. And we also offer the space. I mean, a lot of times the kids just need a space where they can feel safe, number one. And number two, where they can, like I said, decompress. If they need to sleep for a little bit, if they need to eat something, you know, if they want to just be left alone and not bothered and have to go from class to class to class and have the teachers asking where their homework is and why didn't they do this and why were they late and, you know, asking all these questions. And they just have a little more of an opportunity to chill out, I think. You know, with still, obviously, we're still asking the questions, holding them accountable and such, but like giving them a little more space. I really think that makes a difference. And the love. I mean, you can feel it with everybody here. Everybody here comes here, and I think they're happy to be here. You know, I sure look forward to it. And, you know, I have kids that are like, when are you going to pull me? When are you going to see me? And it's like, I want to see you all, but there's so many of you, which is great, right?
We are full at the moment. We have a lot of students in-house.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just, I think they just enjoy the individualized attention, and I think the difference is they can really feel that we care.
Who doesn't love to tell their story, though?
Exactly.
Right? Good or bad.
Right.
We all want to tell our story. We all want to know that we're being heard and that you know, and I think that I think of the group that typically tunes in here and those that get involved, and I love when the stories flow in here because you know it's really turns into this great dialogue of people who share with each other and are, I mean, honestly very vulnerable at times with each other.
And I think that's what makes us human, and I think that the students love that. I think they recognize that we're also willing to self-disclose, you know, to an extent, and then that gives you an opportunity to connect with them and to realize, oh, like, he's not perfect and she's not, you know, she doesn't think she's better than me. She has a piece of her story that connects with a piece of mine. And, you know, now we've made that connection and now I trust her a little bit more and now I can tell my story a little bit more. And I think that's all about building that trust. And in the traditional school setting, you don't always have the opportunity to do that. So.
Well, because you've got curriculum.
Exactly. Right? You've got stuff to talk about.
You've got to, you know, state standards and testing and all this kind of stuff. And I think one of the things that we talk about often and with our, I mean, I've said it dozens of times probably on stream, this idea of the first thing we sacrifice is that whole testing, that whole school. I mean, math credits mean nothing if you're a shattered human being.
Exactly.
I mean, so that really is the context of the stream today, this idea of, you know, I asked the question, what is love? What's that singer? What is love?
That's the one.
I think of that song, you know, what is love? And I think very often we think of it as a soft, warm, fuzzy feeling.
Sure.
You know, that very often, you know, you see the dog, you get all excited. Oh, I love it. You know, that's what we think of love is. And I think, and I tend to want to rephrase that a little bit. It's not what is love. What is true love?
Sure.
And I think when we, in the context of the students, when we interview, you know, it's not uncommon for myself or to Nick to say to parents, I'm going to love your kid the way I love my own. And the idea there, the context there is I am truly going to love on your child.
Right.
Because, you know, I think scripturally very often this idea of love is kind, patient, you know. It's this insatiable, very powerful, oh my gosh, it's tenacious.
Sure.
You know, it chases after. And I think that's what I think what we strive for here is just this chasing after. We don't give up on,
Right.
because schools very often, an event will happen and they just remove the student.
Yeah, exactly.
And so when we talk about, so last week we talked a little bit about adverse childhood effects. What has your experience been so far with regards to, those emotional events, those traumatic events in our lives with the students that we serve?
Yeah.
What's your experience been with the reality of the impact that it has on their ability to function, let alone
Right.
do schoolwork?
So what I've found is, and what I've learned most that has really stuck with me about ACEs is the idea that when we experience so many adverse childhood events and repeatedly exposed to them, the actual brain chemistry that occurs, the adrenaline, the fight or flight, the norepinephrine, all that, it actually enough times will go ahead and change the structure of
It
kids'
literally
brains,
alters.
like it changes it. And, so then, kids get stuck in that fight or flight or freeze, and they don't they don't know anything else. They don't know how else to cope. They don't know what else to do. And I've seen that when you give a kid a second to talk about that, if they have that opportunity, and you almost not necessarily normalize it, but sort of humanize it, like,
that's a great way of saying
so
it.
your reaction was, this, but this is why you reacted that way. If you connect what happened to you when you were this age, and then you connect it to this that happened, and then almost like that in and of itself is therapeutic, because now they take away the whole, I'm not a bad person,
Because a lot of the first reaction we get from a lot of kids is, well, nobody can understand what I'm going through.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And so that's a great way that when you say you normalize it, not that it's normal that you should be going through this or that you should have to experience this.
Right.
Just the fact that the emotions you're feeling are very normal, as are your reactions. So
Exactly.
just knowing how to control and understand and
Right.
all those sorts of things is really the critical key. I think.
Exactly. And so when I talked a little bit about sensory trauma and such, a lot of times these kids a lot of times when you ask them, what happened? Why did you go off and swing at this kid? Or why did you this and that and the other thing? They don't really know. And the truth is they probably don't, because it could very well be that when they were traumatized, maybe there was a certain song playing. Maybe there is a scent, of somebody that reminds them of that. And they may not actually, their self may not actually be aware of that as a trigger, but their brain knows it. So they immediately go into fight or flight. I mean, that's the brain protecting the kids. So they do it, So bringing light to those things, those triggers, that trauma, and then working through it. I mean, and oftentimes in my supervision, I say, how do I know what I'm doing is working? How do I know that I am healing their trauma?
That's a great question.
And it's like, and I'm like, how do I know that I'm not re-traumatizing and I'm not, ripping them open and sending them out to the world with their trauma just all exposed? How do I know what I'm doing is making a difference? And a lot of times it's just, you don't necessarily know, you just trust the process, that what you're doing has been proven, it works, it's evidence-based practice, and a lot of times just having those conversations, those realizations, it makes all the difference, because they might not know. And when you know that, like, oh yeah, there was a lilac candle burning when I was traumatized, and now anytime I smell that candle, I immediately flip out and I don't know why. And now that you know that, like, okay, now we can work on, kind of deconditioning the brain, if you will. So yeah, I feel like I went off on a little bit of a tangent, but
No, that's the whole point of the stream.
Yeah,
I'm all about the tangents.
So yeah, I mean, that's kind of been my experience with them, is just they don't necessarily always know why. And that's okay. And as long as you give them the safe space to maybe entertain the idea that they've been traumatized and what that might look like, and how we can walk it out together and maybe change some stuff moving forward.
So I talked about something 2 weeks ago. I don't know. I can't remember if you were in that one or not for a little bit. I think you were. This idea of sitting Shiva, this idea of listening well. How much of your job is listening?
Most of it. I would say a lot of it. And a lot of it's active listening, so I'm validating what they're saying. I'm reflecting back to them what I feel like I've heard to make sure that I've heard them correctly. And, just active, like shaking my head and making sure I'm, not distracted by paperwork or anything.
You're not on your phone
Oh,
texting.
No, I put that away. And, I really give them my undivided attention. And that's something that they don't get very often either. So even just that, is huge.
Because I mean, truth is, we live in a culture now that is very distracted.
Yeah.
Right. It's not uncommon. To for example, my meeting that I have every Monday morning before I stream. Every Monday morning, as I said, I go for this breakfast. I've been doing it for 5 years now. And this morning, I usually silence my phone, but this morning I left it on by accident, and my phone rang. And the guy I meet with, his name is Joe, says, "Oh, if you go ahead, get that." I'm like, "Dude, I will never answer my phone," because the reality is this is a mentoring situation for me, where I'm like, "No, this is." The value of this, it far outweighs whatever is going to come across this phone. You know
exactly.
what I mean? So I just turned my phone upside down and said, "No, you have my full undivided attention. This is that valuable to me."
Right.
And I mean, we're not exactly young men sitting at that table. You know what I mean? There's a lot of gray at the table when we're talking. Let me put it that way. So, so in the context of the work that you do, the approach that you take, and the students that we get, because I wouldn't call our students average when it comes to a lot of the traumas that we're dealing with and a lot of the hurdles that we're trying to overcome. You know, how do you love well in that situation? You know, how do you love lavishly in that situation? Because there's a couple of realities to that as well. Especially, you know, take from me, for example. I've got to be careful how I show affection towards the young ladies here, right? I've got to be very cognizant of, I want to be fatherly to them in the sense that they know that they're safe and that they are little princesses, you know what I mean? Those sorts of things. But at the end of the day, there's danger in that. So I mean, how do we love lavishly? I think without, as you said, doing more harm.
Sure.
You know, and I think because one of the things I often question is how well are we even teaching this in schools to up and coming counselors and social workers and. Because is there a textbook on that?
Yeah, you know, there might be a textbook. There might be some ethical guidelines, you know, that you always go back to. But a lot of it, I feel like, really just comes from the genuine nature of our conversations. So while I may not sit next to them and, you know, wrap my arm around them or anything like that, or, you know, hug them or whatever it may be, a lot of that love comes from, you know, the tone of my voice, the fact that I'm making eye contact with them, the fact that I'm validating their story, and I'm telling them that the way they feel is fair, you know, because it's their feelings and no one can tell them that that's wrong. And just kind of really creating that safe space. That's how I love on them. And by every morning that I come in here, walking into the classrooms and kind of doing a morning, everybody, how's everybody doing? And
high fives,
and showing everybody, you know, that I'm here and, you know, I'm going to call people, but if you need me, you know, you just grab me and we'll chat. And just giving them that, I guess I'm not sure the word. I'm just giving them that security that I am here for them.
In the fact that you go out of the way to notice them.
Right.
Like very intentionally go to everyone's desk and say, "Hey, good morning. I'm glad you're here today," or something to that effect. I think that's one of the key things that I really committed to this year is making sure that every student, as often as possible, at least daily, knew that I was aware that they were present.
Right, and that you're happy to see them, and you're happy that they walk through the door, and whatever they look like, whatever mood they're in, whatever they're feeling, like, we're just happy you're here. Like, you know, if that's all that happens today is that you showed up, great.
So having said that, that's a great point to what I want to say right now. So I know there are a lot of people in this chat, but whatever we're saying has them absolutely tongue-tied. Usually my chat is blowing up, and for some reason either this topic is too deep for them, or they're just mesmerized by you. So guys, chat, if you got questions, if you want to add to the conversation, if you just want to say hi to Kate, don't be shy. I know you're here, and on that note, thank you for being here. As Kate said, I want to acknowledge that you are here and that I appreciate those who have already followed and subscribed and everything today. So appreciate you. I want to read a quote. And I want to get your response from it. I'm going to read a couple of his quotes because I don't know if you've ever heard a guy named Emmett Fox.
I have not.
He's a pretty popular guy. A friend of mine introduced me to him a while ago. Nick Rush says hi. What's up, Nick?
Hi, Nick.
A long time no see. I think one of them is one I've grown to really appreciate recently, and I want to get your opinion on it.
Okay.
There is no, and this is quote unquote Emmett Fox. There is no difficulty that enough love will not conquer. No disease that love will not heal. No door that enough love will not open. It makes no difference how deep set the trouble, how hopeless the outlook, how muddled the tangle, how great the mistake. A significant realization of love will dissolve it all. If only you could love enough, you would be the happiest and most powerful person in the world. Quote 1. Quote 2. If you could love it only enough, you would be the most powerful person in the world. Well, that one phrase, I think, is the epitome,
Yeah.
I think, of what Rise Above is and what it stands for.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's that phrase that there is no difficulty that love will not conquer is, I don't think there's a doctoral research paper in the world that could write about Rise Above that would not arrive at that exact same answer about what is the secret sauce of Rise Above.
Right.
And I think the answer is love lavishly.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Dingo, what was that? When you were younger, you had a hard time wanting to show up to school, and there was a teacher who used to make a point of to start waiting at the door to tell me happy that you're here and to ask me how my morning was, and it made such a huge difference. How much do you think that type of a statement that Adam says there, Dingle, sorry, says there, that impacts our students here at Rise Above? How much of that do you think it is?
I think that's it.
Yeah.
I think it's the making eye contact and just the true honest to God, like, hey, I notice you. Because who knows? Maybe they weren't noticed yesterday at home. Who knows what they went through yesterday, And I think when they just can come here, even if they're resistant to it, because a lot of times they are. A lot of times they're like, no, I don't want you to look at me today. I don't want you to acknowledge the hurt, because I know you're going to see it. Because I know that you're genuine, and I know that you're going to look right into my eyes, and you're going to know that I went through something yesterday, and I don't want to talk about it yet. I feel like I get a lot of that when I come in here, because they see me and it's like, oh, Caitlin's going to want to pull me today.
She's going to want to. I'm getting it.
I'm going to hide today. But realistically, that couldn't be more of a like, hey, I do need to talk, But that's what sets it apart is it's like they come here and there's always somebody. There's somebody that wants to love on them.
Yeah.
And also, I think it's worth mentioning that everybody has their own version of it, right? So, like,
we talk
all
about
of us,
love languages.
yeah, oh, sure, and all of us share, or all of us exert that in a different way. And I think the students can really appreciate the options, I suppose, so they can go to so-and-so for this kind of attention, so-and-so for this, and they get all of that, and they begin to recognize love in so many different versions, and I think that's huge.
So, I mean, again, Dingle says, I kind of had the nobody cares if I show up kind of attitude, and I think that a lot of our students walk in with that.
Yeah.
They're so used to being, or not only feeling lost, but also hiding
Right.
in the crowd. Right?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
If I just slurk to the back of the class, nobody's going to see me, and I don't have to worry about being seen good, bad, or indifferent.
Right.
I
can just disappear.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of our students, kind of cloister themselves very often, and realize they think that is helping them.
Right.
I think that's one of the biggest mistakes is they think that if I just get through the day without getting in trouble, I've won.
Right. Exactly.
When the reality is you didn't necessarily win. You had a success, but you didn't necessarily win.
Right.
So ask you a different question.
Okay.
Still on the concept of loving lavishly. If I have all kinds of gifts, money, stuff, talents, I can build tables with my hands, and all kinds of fancy things. And I give all of that away, did I truly affect change? And if I did, how? And if I didn't, why not? So if I have, like I said, I'm phenomenally rich and I can donate all the money in
Sure.
the world, or if I have, the ability to build a well because I have an engineering degree and I can pump water, fresh water for you,
Yeah.
you know?
Are you giving love or are you providing? You know what I mean? And my thing is I feel like those are two different things. I feel like you don't have to give all the riches away and do all of the things that you're good at in order to show love to somebody. Because love just comes from the heart. I mean, if you just are a human being and you can love on somebody, you don't have to necessarily give the things. Does that make you a good person? It might, but I don't think it's the only thing that, qualifies somebody as a good person.
So
Am I answering your question or did
yeah,
I go
yeah,
sideways?
No, you're fine. You're fine. So Nick's getting back to our hiding a little bit, says Nick's is definitely an uncomfortableness with being seen with our students, when they start here originally. Again, particularly, Nick, because we're so small and, there's not a crowd to hide in, so you're automatically at the front of the class.
Right.
And
And if you're new, you're in the spotlight.
that really highlights
Yep.
you, especially since we do a get to know you and we just make sure that everybody
Make sure everybody sees you. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a different question, but in the same light of what I
Okay.
just asked you.
Okay.
Do you find your relationships useful or do you find your relationships beautiful? So ask yourself, what's the difference between a useful relationship and a beautiful relationship?
Okay.
And again, we can put that in a whole bunch of different contexts, right? So a useful relationship is, my relationship with a teacher when I was in college. I needed my degree. It was very useful that they had the knowledge and we had the transfer of knowledge, and this thing happened. But I did have relationships with some of my professors that were beautiful, in that
Right.
not only was there a relationship transfer, but there was also a depth of a fact transfer that took place, but there was also a depth of relationship that was transferred. I had a professor that truly cared for, in this case, my spirituality and my spiritual well-being,
Sure.
but also poured into me socially and ethically. So I think there was a bit of for me there was a huge difference
Right.
with regards to just someone that had a relationship that was beneficial to me. Like, hey, you can drill a well for me. You can build a table for me. You can do this thing, or you can give me money. And I actually just talked to my friend about this morning, because he has that ability.
Sure.
He has the ability to come in and go, here, I will take care of this for you. And has for us. Rise Above wouldn't exist without this fellow. Truth.
Right.
But I can tell you what is most meaningful to me has been the past 5 years of Monday mornings,
Sure.
where he hasn't given me
Anything.
physically anything,
Right.
but he has loved me lavishly.
Yeah.
And it has turned into this beautiful relate. He could have built 1,000 wells.
Yeah.
He could have sponsored 1,000,000 Rise Aboves. I don't know that it would have the same impact. The
As
same
Monday mornings.
Yeah, the same value, transformation. And this gets to my question of, do they truly affect change? So if I drill a well for you, if I give you a classroom space to do your schoolwork, is that truly what brings about change in someone's life?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that it plays a part. I think we have all these parts, right? And I
Sure.
think that is helpful. But I don't think it's as valuable without the beautifulness of your relationship and the love. I have experience with a professor in the same sense that, she was an awesome professor. I learned a lot from her, but she continues to pour into me, like you said. She continues to reach out, and it's on a spiritual note as well. And she is the one I think of all the time, and I think of the things she's taught me and the lessons that she's given me that I've walked with. And I think that is far more valuable than anything she taught me in the classroom.
Yeah, certainly.
Or anything, and especially in social work, you find, you read all the theory, you read all the textbooks, you do all that kind of stuff. You got to pass all the tests, and that's all great, but you do the case conceptualizations and you talk about different interventions and goals and treatment plans and all the paperwork and such and all the bureaucratic stuff that goes with it. Yeah. But what matters and what they can't teach is sitting down face to face with that person and making a beautiful connection, because that's where the therapy happens. That's where the work happens. I have all this knowledge to back up some of it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if I'm not genuine in my conversation with them, if I'm not honest, if I'm not actively listening, if they're just another person I'm checking off my list for the day, there's nothing going on there. Yeah. They don't feel heard. They don't feel loved. And then they're just like, whatever, you're just another person. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you're here, you have the knowledge, but did you make a change in my day? Not really.
Yeah. I had the opportunity, and I'm curious to see if this has been your experience as well. I had the opportunity 2 years ago to speak to a bunch of, residents,
okay.
doctoral residents at a local hospital. I won't say the name. And it was a room of about, I want to say 50 or so.
Okay.
Younger, well, not all younger. They were mixed age,
okay.
but all new to the profession. And there was all different doctoral studies from the family practitioners all the way through to the people that dispense the drugs and all that.
Sure.
You name it, people were there.
Yeah.
And I spoke at length about not about the theory of how Rise Above works, but I talked about the very anecdotal. We love our kids, and I talked about the value of relationship and how, and I spoke at length to the point of my goal in every one of my relationships is to get these students off of their meds. I want to make them so socially whole that they don't need to medicate anymore, that they get their medication from us, in that they're able to overcome their sadness and depression and all of these things that we just medicate instead of actually resolving.
Exactly.
At the end, I felt bad because there was another presenter there at the same time I was, that gave an excellent presentation, but at the end, all but one of the doctors surrounded me at the end because we were done, and I said open question time, type of thing, and we kind of broke away into groups, and this poor presenter was off to the side by herself, and I was sitting with every doctor around me. Right. And one that stuck out to me was the doctor that was talking about medication. His whole job was prescribing medications, right? And he asked a question, how do medications play into your students in their recovery? And I said, I think they're evil. I said, they definitely have their place. I said, but the reality is most of the medications you're going to prescribe my kids are not helpful. Right. They actually interfere with my ability to do the real work of recovery. I see, and I said to him, and I say it here, I see those medications as a Band-Aid solution to a real problem, which is social, not, there are chemical imbalances that need to be corrected. There are other things that need to be happening. Medications play a role, but when it becomes a systemic part of your treatment, and you don't actually try to resolve, and immediately every one of the other doctors was like, yes, that's what we've been talking about. This is, because their argument is they are conditioned in their treatment, particularly the family doctors and those sorts of things, that, okay, you've got 2.5 minutes to get into that room, diagnose, and get out to the next patient. And their argument is, no, we need more time because we're not actually solving any problems.
Right.
So do you think in your role, that you have enough time and space, just here, but even in general, that you have enough time and space to actually help people get to the root causes? Or do you think that, and this is, this isn't a trap. The reality is, do you think you have the time and the, to get to the root causes? And do you see that as the same kind of thing that I'm talking about?
I do. I feel the same about medications and such. I agree that in certain situations they play a role.
Yeah.
And they may help, but they can also hinder. And I feel that my time with my clients is sufficient. I find that it is difficult to connect, talk about what's gone on in the last week, dive into the trauma and then wrap it all up and send them out the door, not bleeding, within my allotted time frame. Yes. But the thing is that what I have the biggest issue with is keeping people coming back and making sure they stay on and the biggest issue with that is insurance and what do they cover, and only 6 sessions, and it's like that's not enough time to build rapport
Really
and actually unpack what's going on. So that would be my biggest complaint is this stuff could take years, to really sit down and unpack stuff, because you're also processing past stuff, but you're processing like what's going on in the here and now too. And then you're trying to, they're going to try to implement their coping skills and stuff, but they're going to fail. They're not going to do it right every time. And maybe they need a different one. And, I recently had a client, not here, that I started seeing, and she's 8 years old, and she didn't speak for the first 2 sessions. She didn't even talk to me. I didn't even know that, I didn't even know what her voice sounded like. You know what I mean? And I'm just sitting here thinking, how am I going to effect change with this girl if I can't even get her to talk? And, she brought her aunt in with her, and she would speak. And then, so the 3rd session, she would speak to her aunt, and her aunt would speak to me, and then, so we got somewhere. And then, it took me a couple of sessions to figure out how can I connect with her and let her understand that she can trust me and she can talk. And it turned out that she wanted to. We connected over some Korean pop music that she wanted to show me on her on my YouTube, on my phone. So we open every session. She picks out a video. We watch it together, warms her up a little bit, and then she draws. And I don't necessarily interpret it, but I just, because that's a whole different certification. But I ask questions. And I say, what is that? Why did you color it this way? What is it? And then she'll talk. But it's just... You go in with a plan, and 90% of the time, that's not going to work.
Well, and that's relationship as a whole, right? And that's where you really got to be. That's that whole listening skill again. That's that whole thing. So, Nappy, what were you saying, buddy? Tomo? I wanted to ask that exact question because the way your system works, I found with therapy, you really need time to get to the root causes. Yeah. And then what's that Adam saying? Meds are way too overprescribed now. It's because it's an easy solution, right? It's a cheap, quick thing. It doesn't require amazing people like Kate to get involved. It's just because therapy is expensive.
And you were talking in the beginning about what did he say about
You can scroll up if you need to and chat too.
Well, I thought you had said at one point, how long does it take to have these conversations? And how do you know when you get there?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the thing is, so that's what you're talking about is we want it now. We want instant results and we want to fix it now. And a lot of times what you find with teachers, what you find with parents is their kids acting up. They want it to stop. They want it to stop now. And how can you get that to stop as quickly as possible? Meds.
Yep.
Pull them out of school. Send them somewhere else. Do something else.
Yep.
Remove them. That's what they want. And he said, you really have to, Nappy said, I found with therapy, you really need time. You do. But the thing is a lot of times parents don't want to spend the time, or because they just want their kid to stop acting up.
Yeah.
And if they can do that by medicating them and making them a zombie for the next however many months, then fine.
That just scares me even thinking about that whole idea.
Yeah.
So that gets to the root cause of, one of the root elements of Rise Above is time.
Yeah.
When we bring students in, we say to schools that we try and get students here at least a semester. A solid 4 months ish. Ideally 1 year, 1 school year, so that they can get to know us, they can feel comfortable with us to the point where they don't want to leave almost,
right?
Or where when things happen, they want to come back.
Yes.
They see it as the benefit. Nappy, generally no. Kate will not see students after Rise Above. Now that does not mean students can't seek her out outside of Rise Above. As a matter of fact, we have a young lady that has gone back to school just recently that is asked to continue to see Kate, and we absolutely allow that to happen. Because again, when you get it, so we have the 4 pillars of relationship, right? So let's talk about these right now. Okay. Because I'd love to get your feedback on what you think. Okay. Because these don't come from a textbook. These don't come from anywhere. This is just, over the years in the kind of the spirit moving in us saying, okay, this is the foundations of your organization. This is the spirit of what you should be doing. The idea is that we think relationships should come first, and the second is that we believe relationships should endure. So the idea there is we're willing to sacrifice everything else to make sure you're okay. number one. Number two is when we say relationships should endure, just because the student goes back to school or leaves the program or if God forbid, something happens, we have to remove them from the program, we never close the door to that relationship. We realize that if they want to engage us long term, we're willing to allow, we want that to happen.
Right.
Because we know, I hope we know we're a good influence.
Yeah. Yeah.
we are a good thing
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
this student.
Sure.
So to answer your question, Nappy, most students do not, once they successfully go back to school, the reality is they can. If they asked, and we offer at the end of their sessions here and when we release them back to the schools, we actually say to them, anybody you want to talk to here at any time when you're in school, you know how to get a hold of us, and we will absolutely drop everything to get out to your school and see you or to meet with you, or you're welcome to come back here and participate, because we run summer school every year in July, and we send out flyers to all of our former students, all of them that are still in school, and say, hey, come on out for summer school.
Yeah.
Come hang out with us for the summer. We'd love to have you here. You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
Just come have fun with us. And,
Just be here.
Yeah, and just be present with us, so we can love on you some more. And it's always surprising to see who responds back and who says, "Oh, I'd love to, but I got a job now," and you
Right.
know, all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So it is kind of interesting. I want to share with you a bit of my testimony, and I say testimony. Dingle, why you gotta? I have a lady in the room, and you're gonna make me flex. Buddy. So I don't know if you just realize there's little points that they can get at the bottom, and they can redeem them for things. And one of them is a flex. I'll give you the flex at the end of the thing there. So part of my testimony, when I came to faith, did somebody say ripped immersed?
More like ripped immersed.
Yeah.
Oh my god, he's jacked, dude.
So one of the things when I came to faith was this realization. What's up, CJ? So 20 millimeters, CJ.
Okay.
Just
I
in case
see
you
him.
want to, yeah.
All right.
One of the realizations for me when I came to faith was I used to write poetry a lot when I was a teenager.
Okay.
And so when I came to my testimony in the very beginning was a conversation that I had with God, or that He had with me. And what I thought one night was me just writing a bunch of, hey, Ellie, what's going on? Was me writing a bunch of poetry, ended up being a full conversation between God and myself.
Okay.
I should bring it on and read it on stream one day, because I can't read it to this day without absolutely bawling my eyes out. But it's one of those things where the very first thing that is written in that letter, the top of the page, is me saying, I asked God if I could ever be loved. The reality there is that is our first question, everyone's first question,
Yeah.
is, am I worthy
Yep.
to be loved? The beautiful thing of that was the very next thing was God says, I have always loved you. You know, and even saying that, just want to, and I think that's what we want to say to our kids here all the time, is that you are deeply loved. You know, this idea of loving, I want you here because I want to love on you lavishly. I want to show you your value. I don't see you as just a student,
Right.
right, who is worthy of a math credit.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that the value for me in having someone like you here with your expertise and your passion, I mean, to me that's really more valuable than your expertise. It's just
Sure.
your passion and your desire to love on these kids as much as we do. Because it's just the reality that it's this idea of love breaks barriers down that no amount of anything else, I believe, money, things,
Right.
drugs will ever break through.
Right.
You know, that idea, I always say to kids, when in holes, stop digging, right?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you think
I
that
mean,
this
that's
action is helping you. It's going to dig out of this hole. Well, no, you're in the hole. You're
You're
still digging.
digging, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When you dig in a hole, you only go deeper.
Yep.
You have to stop digging, and the reality is you're in a hole that you've dug where you think the only way out is to keep digging.
Right.
The logical answer to that is you can't get out of the hole alone
Exactly.
because you're in a hole.
Right.
Right? Now, if it's shallow enough, you might be able to crawl out. You might be able to figure it out on your own. But the reality is by the time we see our kids are so deep, there is no way they're getting out on their own.
No.
So they need someone to get in the hole, either with them to help them, hey, let me
Come
boost
out.
you up,
Yep.
because I'm strong enough that I can climb out of this hole by myself,
Yep.
right? Because I've already arrived.
Yep.
Or, hey, I'm strong enough, or I have the expertise, in your case, to lower down a ladder to you to help you get to a place where you can get out on your own.
Yep.
Or I can surround you with people, whether it be EMS or whatever it is, in our
Yeah.
case. But, hey, what's up, OG? Nice to have you here, buddy. I got to call you later on. I have an idea I want to throw at you, by the way. And thank you for coming in and saying hi, buddy. I appreciate you. So OG Pickle, just so you know, see all the T-shirts behind you? He creates all this stuff.
Oh, yes. Yep.
So
Yep.
Mitch
I
is,
remember that
Mitch
conversation.
is a great guy.
Awesome.
Up and coming.
That's
Should we
super
partner
cool.
much there, Mitch? Come on, buddy. We got to get you to partner. Soph, welcome. I know the hello, handsome and sexy man isn't for me. It's clearly for the OG Pickle. So Mitch is all right. Oh, Mal's here too. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you popping in. So Mal's an EU streamer.
Okay.
I should say she's from England.
Okay.
The EU thing doesn't work well. So phenomenal guy. Really
Yeah.
great sense of humor. Really talented as well. Almost as good as OG Pickle, but not quite. You still love me, Soph? I appreciate you, buddy. And Mao has great emotes too.
I see that.
Yeah, Mao's loves the cats.
Yeah.
I'm looking for my Mao emotes as we speak. But I think in the grand scheme of my point with the testimony is that the secret to true freedom and change is the idea of being loved. And I want to focus in on that word, freedom and change, because how do you think most of our kids, if they're going to get into a different direction, if they're going to change the trajectory of their lives, because we talk a lot about school to prison pipeline and all that kind of jazz, right? I mean, obviously, besides the context of loving lavishly, what is it about our work that you think brings about the most change? I know it's a general, broad brushstroke question, and that is the bulk of most of our streams.
That's okay.
'Cause we can't get too deep, but
Yeah, no, that's understandable. I think a lot of it is the environment. Because if you look at where they're coming from, I would venture to say maybe not 100%, but 80 to 90% of our kids don't live in a safe environment, or they don't live in an environment that fosters that positivity, that change, that that support that they need to help get out of that hole. So when they come here, they have that opportunity to be here in a safe space, and they can grow. And what's devastating is that sometimes they have to go back to that, and then they have to learn how to fight, that at home. And when you think about home, I mean, that's my safe haven. I'm sure that's where you like to go home to be safe. And that's where you do a lot of growth, right? And that's where you go home to be supported. And a lot of these kids leave here and they don't. They walk home, or they don't. They walk to wherever, and they go into this environment that's not productive. It's not supportive. It's not helping foster
lot
that
of
change.
times. Yeah.
Yes, most of the time, not always. So I think here they just have a chance to come here and, when we talk about spirituality, I feel like they probably feel when they come here the way I feel when I go to church. I go to church and I have my opportunity to just really just be here. I don't have to do anything, but I'm here, and I know that the people here are praying for me, they're loving me, and I'm having some one-on-one time with God, and I can just really feel that love. And I'd like to imagine that when they walk into these doors, they feel that same love. And they feel that from us. They feel that from our what's the consistency?
Yeah.
The consistent, we're always showing up. Whether they're here or not every day, we're here. And they know that we're going to be here. And that, I think, that repetitive consistency is really important to them too. Aside from loving them so much, when they're here.
Let's see. Not an OG Pickle says we all went outside to play when we were younger, but nobody knew when that last time would be. So in CJ is saying being able to go outside safely is starting to fade in a lot of places. So let's talk about. So a couple of weeks ago we had a pastor friend of mine on here that is a big gamer, loves to play video games, board games, is a writes books and does all kinds of stuff. What do you think? What impact do you think video games has on the social of these kids and their ability to communicate, particularly? Because our communication's changed.
Yeah, it has. I think a lot of the times they have that, they struggle with the face-to-face because they're so used to doing it through a device of some sort, be it their phone, be it the computer. There is a social aspect to gaming. I definitely don't want to dog it by any means because it's like there is a productive way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when it turns into something that consumes every aspect of their lives and it has now hindered the way that they communicate and they really can't function outside of that, I think that's when it maybe becomes a bit of an issue. But it can be used for good. It can be used for great. It fosters community and it allows them to form relationships. You just want to hope that those relationships are being formed in the right direction, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then they don't know how to really communicate aside from texting, or they might be able to, I know because you can talk, right? I'm not a gamer, so I don't know, but you can talk to people, right?
I'll give you a good scenario in a second.
You can talk, so maybe that gives you a good opportunity to have conversation. But what are the conversations about? I don't know. So.
And so that's a great segue to what I was going to say. The kind of story I was going to tell is this idea of, so what are the conversations about? So my oldest son, who's now 20, plays CSGO competitively.
Okay.
And has regular matches where, he's playing with some pretty good players from all over the world. And I remember a couple of years ago, because I don't know if you all know this about me or not, but I do a lot of speaking. And I although at times it doesn't appear as though I pride myself on speaking well and in conveying a certain message to people. Not that I want to tell them necessarily about how great we are, but I want to empower them to be great as well, whether it's participation in what we do or finding their thing to be great in. And one day, I overheard my this time 18-year-old, 17, 18-year-old son just screaming at his teammates. Are you idiots? You got to do this. Why didn't you do, and I'm like, and what he's doing is trying to be the leader. And he's seeing, screaming and chastising his teammates as being a leader. And I think that very often when we talk about relationships, we don't know how to lead well or have good relationships well. And I think the reality is I don't know. This is an educated guess. That's the reality of my channel. I always say I'm not the expert. This is my way of talking through this stuff and figuring out what I should be thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
And when I saw my son yelling at these kids, I said, "Hey, why don't you?" Not just kids. Some of these are grown men. Why don't you try leading a different way, right? Why don't you try giving not just damning correction to say you're an idiot, why'd you do that, but why don't you tell them exactly what you would have done? Hey, next time, why don't you try doing this or going this way? And it was funny because it took a couple of weeks of me saying, you need to stop talking like that. A, I'm not okay with it parentally. I said, and B, you're going to lose teammates.
Right.
To where he finally started doing it, and I never hear him yell anymore.
Really?
It is actually neat to hear him now talk to his teammates where he is actually leading them as a leader would do.
Right.
Right?
Right.
The idea there is, now Mao has claimed to flex. Oh, my God. The reality is that there are several people that don't. Let me rephrase this. Most of our students don't know how to lead well. And when I say lead, I'm not talking about lead these guns. Now, you're so funny, man. The reality is that most people don't know how to interact with their friends in a way outside of the gaming world. I want to do a study one day on Twitch and chat.
Okay.
And how people come in and have conversations that they would never have at home. And how they're willing to act in a way socially they would never act face to face.
Face to face, sure.
And I think that a lot of our students here, when they walk into the building, they've forgotten how to have a quote what we would call socially normal conversation, right? They've to kind of either save face in school or to defend themselves from behaviors or actions that they yeah, it gets tough.
It does.
They've lost interpretation a lot of times. So,
Yeah.
anyways, there's stuff going on in chat here that I'm missing. I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole. Sorry. And I'm not saying everyone all the time,
Right.
CJ. That's not what I'm getting at, buddy. And Fawcett, what are you saying? Sometimes it's easier to say things to people that you aren't close to. Yeah, I agree completely.
Well, sure, because, if you're having conversations with somebody that you're not close to, does it mean as much to them? You know what I mean? Is it going to affect them in such a way? There's a certain vulnerability about having those conversations with somebody that you care about. So I totally get that. That makes a lot of sense.
What Adam was saying, Dingleberry was saying, people showing you consistently. I'm assuming showing you love consistently gives you comfort in your own life. You may have rough days over and over, but someone showing you consistently love can help overcome that. Yeah, and that's really what we're doing here, right? We're giving folks that opportunity to all right.
Yeah.
So we have another thing. So we have the 4 pillars of relationship. Relationships come first. Share relationships. Relationships are individualized. In other words, we treat everyone differently. And then the whole idea of enduring relationships. So then we have the other thing. Trust, obedience, challenge, change, growth. So you mentioned the word trust earlier, right? So for me, trust is foundational for everything. And a lot of people say trust is earned, right? I say, my challenge back is, as I say, we all start with trust.
Sure.
And trust is not earned, trust is taken away over time. It's eroded. So, because we freely give trust all the time.
We do.
When we go to restaurants, we trust that someone's not going to tamper with our food.
Right? Yeah.
When we stop at a stop sign or when we go on a green light, we trust that the other person's going to stop.
Yep.
Right? So we freely give trust all the time. When students walk into Rise Above and when parents walk away, leaving a student behind, the parent is trusting us
They are. Yep.
to do certain things and not do certain things with their student.
Yes.
So if trust was earned and I just met them, how are they? So for the students here, my question to them is, how do I earn your trust if essentially you've already shown up and you've given it to me? Where do you place trust in your approach? How important is it to you that students trust you or vice versa, that you trust the student?
Well, it's foundational. I mean, that there's no conversation, no genuine conversation happening if we don't trust each other. I find that my approach has been with the students is as soon as they walk in the door and they see me for the first time, I'm not like, hey, come up to my office and why don't you tell me everything about you?
Yeah.
I don't do that. I give them a little bit of time. I let them see my face a little bit more. And sure, they might trust that I'm here and I'm someone that, but a lot of them have not had great experiences with counselors or therapists or what have you, social workers. And so I kind of feel like I have to I almost have to show up for them. Like I have to show them that I'm here for them in a way that they may not have gotten in another way, for sure. And what I found, though, is you're right about that trust thing, because one of the first conversations I had with someone, I hardly said a word. And he was sitting there talking to me, and he goes, I haven't really loved my counselors that much, but I feel like you're a little bit different. I feel like you're not as sketchy. And I'm thinking, where'd you come to that conclusion? I've hardly even said.
And one point I'll make with that, you may have the answer to this already, but as soon as you said that, the first thing that popped in my mind is because you didn't talk over him.
Right.
You didn't tell him what he needed. Well, I know your problem.
Right.
Let me tell you what's going on.
Yeah.
The fact that you and I've seen you work enough here that I know that you're a listener.
Right.
Right. That you actually give the students a chance to say what they need to say.
Yes, yes. And something I've learned, because there's different, there's this whole therapist counselor model, right? And then there's different tracks to get there. And something that I kind of pride myself on is my track is social work. And the difference between, a psychologist and a counselor is all in their approach and how they want to do therapy. And what's awesome about social work is we kind of take that initiative to like, I'm not the expert and I'm not going to talk down to you and tell you everything you're doing wrong and tell you your problem, like you just said. And then from a counselor standpoint, a lot of time it's education, right? So that's got its place too. But my approach is like, let's walk this out together. Let me walk with you and let me help you, realize these things within yourself, reflect things back to you, let you talk it out, and let me kind of put in my 2 cents here and there. Let me reframe a few thoughts that you have, but really let's do this together. And I think that approach makes a huge difference. When they realize I'm not in here throwing stuff at them and telling them to do this and do this and do that and why everything they've done before is wrong. More so like, hey, we're here. Let's do this. Let's walk it out. Let's see what it's going to look like. I don't know what it's going to look like, And a lot of times I ask them, like, what do you want? What do you want our time to look like together? You want to just have a safe space to vent? We can do that. Do you want to work on something? And a lot of times they're just like, I don't know. I just want to be here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, that's great. We can be here. Maybe next week you'll have something else that you think about that you're like, hey, I'd kind of like to look into this a little bit more. I had that today. I need to work on this. And can you help me figure this out? And it's like, yeah, we can do that. We can definitely do that. But it's very client-centered. It's very student-centered because they're the ones that have to do the work. I could talk all day long till I'm blue in the face about things that they could try and whatnot. But at the end of the day, they're the ones that got to do the work.
Yeah, and I think that, as you're talking there, and I hate that my mind strays, but
You're fine.
I think about, things that students have said to me over the years, and one of the things that stands out in my mind that I've heard often from students is this idea of, and I'm paraphrasing, but Mr. Fernandez, you're the first one to ever ask me if I'm okay. And a young lady that just went back to school has said several times, the great thing I like about coming in your office is I know that you're just going to let me talk. You're not going to cut me off and tell me what I need or
what I've done wrong or how I made this choice. And, no, you're just going to let them talk.
I think one of the greatest satisfactions, and I think in either one of our places, is to help somebody come to the realization on their own without being told.
Yep.
That they when they have that eureka moment of, oh my gosh, that's what's going on.
Yes.
And I think that's where some of the most profound change happens.
It does. It does. And then just that that validation of like, hey, you're doing all right. Yeah. You're doing a good job. Like, give yourself a break. Pat yourself on the back. Those types of things.
So do you think that that's part of the issue is that students or people in general think it's worse than it is? That the hole is too deep. I just can't fix this.
Yeah, I do. A lot of times, I find that it's just like, well, I've already been expelled. I've already been kicked out of that school. I already caught a case for this. I got to go to court this, and I can't do anything else. And so I might as well just live it out. And it's like, it doesn't have to be that way. And then a lot of times when I see the students and they're having a bad day, I'm like, hey, you're here.
Yeah.
You got up and you got here this morning. I'm happy you're here. Are you happy you're here? All right, let's talk about it,
So I've said that. Well, we've said that several times. Well, just send me home. You're just going to send me home. No, I'm not going to send you home. That's actually
that's the last thing I want to do.
Unless you're taking a swing at me, I'm not sending you home,
Right.
Because the reality is, if I send you home, I can't affect change anymore.
Exactly.
I can't help you anymore. I can't, be there to support you when you're ready to allow me to support you. I can't, And I think a lot of times people are so conditioned that when something dramatic happens, the first response is no, just go, get out. That you talked about earlier. The idea of the classroom is how do I this quick thing? How do I fix it quickly and move on?
Right.
As I was talking with the doctors, they're conditioned to do this. Oh, I forgot you were here, puppers. Hey, babies.
He took a nice nap. He's probably like, wait a minute, where am I at?
So the reality there is, I think that even when kids want help, they're almost just like, okay, let's just do this thing, get it over with.
Yep.
I just.
There was a student one time when I brought her into the office, and the first thing she said was, I know what you want to ask. Just do it. And I'm trying to explain like a little bit of here and there about what I'm doing. And she's like, just write what you got to write down on your paper.
Yeah.
I know what you're here to do. And I was like, oh, so then when I put my paperwork down and I was like, well, let's talk. Her face was kind of like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Everybody has a different approach. Everybody needs something different. And it's just about figuring it out.
Yeah.
What do they need in that moment?
And I don't know if anyone can see what I'm petting beside me. But for those of you that can, I have a puppy in my studio. But I think that's the critical thing is it doesn't always happen as quick as I want it to happen. The reality is that a lot of times students don't quite understand how sold out we actually are.
Yeah.
Ellie sees the puppy. But the reality is, I think she's so precious. I think, what am I trying to say? I want people to know, I want students to know that there really isn't no mountain too high, no valley too wide, that we can't together fix, that we can't bridge. And I think very often the reality that students think that it's too broken.
Right. Unfixable. There's no point.
Yeah. And the tragedy is they're told that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I've ever told you this story about a young lady that I had brought in 3 or 4 years ago now, where she was literally introduced to me. The first words that her guardian said to me was, "Oh, this is my bad girl." That's how I was introduced to her. And it happened to be this like 6'5" guy, big dude. And he's now a friend of mine. I actually know him personally. And I just stopped him. I said, I want you to hold on for a second. I said, do me a favor. Don't ever address her like that again. I said, you're labeling her by something she did, not by who she is.
Yeah.
I said, and I just looked at her and I literally grabbed her and I said, you are not a bad girl. I said, yes, we may have done something wrong, but you are not defined by your past.
Right.
And he was just like, okay. It's just one of those things where, okay.
Well, I mean, but it's true.
It's going to be different today,
Absolutely.
And she did well when she was with us. I mean, obviously, we always wanted to be better. But it was one of those things where she arrived regularly, where she had success where she had not had success before. And I know as a young lady, she's gone on to do pretty decent for herself. When you think of what everyone thought was originally going to be the case. Anyways, so I think that's the hurdle that very often our students are struggling to get over is this idea of I am who you define me to be.
Right.
Because I know you, because I respect you, because you have this position of authority. If you say I'm a bad kid,
then I guess I am.
I must be, right? Because this learned, wise person just said, I am this thing, and I've said it on stream here before, but could you imagine? This is a true story. This is 8th grade for me.
Okay.
I got pulled out of 8th grade. What's up, Diablo? I got pulled out of 8th grade and literally dragged out of class. Literally grabbed by the shirt and dragged out of class, and pinned against the wall out in the hallway, and told by my 8th grade teacher that I was going to be a loser my entire life.
Oh wow.
Could you imagine saying that to a student, any student? let alone somebody who's already preconditioned to believe that they are a troubled kid.
Right. Right.
And I think for me, the reality is the only thing that saved my butt then was I'm stubborn.
Sure.
And I'm like, oh yeah, lady, I'm gonna show you.
I'll show you that I'm not gonna be a loser.
Yeah. That's the worst thing you can ever say to me is you can't do that.
Right. Because you're gonna figure out a way to do it.
We're gonna figure this one out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the other blessing was I think the military for me is I had a great number of people around me in the military that, and again I joined the military because my dad said I couldn't. My dad said you can't, you'll ruin the family name, literally. You'll be 2 months and you'll be out type of thing. And so there was no way in heck I was
Letting that go.
dropping out,
Sure.
So they could have tied me to a pole and waterboarded me every day, and I still would have stayed in there just to prove that.
Prove that you could do it.
Yeah.
You know, my past kind of comes from, you know, I'm still in school, right? So I don't know if we talked about that.
We did not.
You know, I'm a grad student, so I'm doing my internship here and outside of here as well. And so I'm almost 30 years old, and I'm still, you know, I still haven't gotten to my career finalization, right? So I often find myself frustrated with that. You know, I have friends that graduated high school, went right into college, and did everything the quote unquote right way.
Yep.
They didn't make any mistakes, and you know, their careers are well off and running. You know, but I got pregnant when I was 19, and I kind of had to put things on hold, right? And I had to spend a couple of years just working and supporting my child and trying to figure out what our lives were going to look like. And based on everything around me and the statistics, well, I was just going to do nothing and you work a minimum wage job and have more kids and live off the system. And, you know, I was going to be this typical teenage mother. And, you know, I refused to accept that.
Yep.
You know, it's going to be hard, and I'm going to figure it out, but I'll get there.
Yep.
And I'll do it when, you know, because I have the support and I have the means and the drive to do so. But a lot of that was this idea of like, well, I don't want to be what I'm statistically supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know, it was this drive to show them.
So there's something important in there, because I'll give you, I'm with you. Veronica and I were in the exact same boat. You know, we had children very young, out of wedlock. It could have been catastrophic, except for a sheer determination on our part to not let it be, which is exactly what you just expressed. You made the decision. You made the decision to not let that stop you from achieving your goal.
Right.
You decided catastrophe is not an option.
Exactly.
And I think that for me, that is my number one message here, is that catastrophe should not be an option. You should not be okay with failing.
Exactly.
You should not be willing to resign the next 60 plus years of your life to misery, which is a lot of times what they're like, yeah, I guess this is just what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it's who I am. It's my family's genetic makeup, and and again, I told the story of when I was a young man. I mean, I did not come from a good family. I was kidnapped when I was a kid by my father. I mean, there's a reality to my life that I could have went, well,
This is it.
This
This
is
is
it.
what is written out for me. I am who I am, and that's how it's going to be.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and, you know, no, it doesn't have to be that way.
yeah. So I mean, what do you think set you apart mindset wise, so that you could make that decision? What was different versus someone that does not?
I had a really good support system. You know, my parents, they got divorced when I was in high school, and that was, you know, that sucked. But, you know, my dad is a police officer, and I've just always been raised to a certain level of expectation, you know, and that played very much into my childhood and my decision to achieve what I needed to achieve.
Sure.
You know, what was different for me was my child, you know, and I'll never forget the day, because we're living in my mom's house, and I'll never forget the day that she was, you know, I had a bedroom and downstairs, and she had a crib in my room, and I just remember going, I want her to have her own bedroom.
Yeah.
You know, just that in and of itself, I was like, why? I've got to do something. And, you know, and my relationship with God was tested, because I very much felt like I'd failed, you know, that I was 100% not worthy, you know, because I had made the choice to have a child out of wedlock, and I was no longer with her dad, and I didn't want to be, and it was never going to work. And I didn't want to go down that road. You know, I saw this road stretch out in front of me, and it looked awful, and I didn't want any part of it.
Yeah.
And I literally was like, I have to make choices. I have to do different things. And it just, I mean, scraping myself up off the floor, literally, to to go towards the right direction. And I had a great group of people, coworkers that just really built me up and helped me get to that. It was support. It was love.
Yeah.
It was the love that people were just like, you can do this. You can get there. You can move in this direction. Like, you just have to give it time. And that's the other thing, is it wasn't going to happen right away. I wasn't going to go buy my first house right away. I wasn't going to have money, to support us in a home right away. But if I was doing all the right things, I could get there.
Yeah, it's that whole idea of investing, right? You've got to invest the time. And investments don't pay off overnight.
Exactly.
You got to sit and wait for maturity to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that there's something to what you're saying in the sense of what created, and we talk about I talk about capacity a lot, right? That a lot of times when you're at your limit, when you have no capacity left, you on your own cannot bring about change. And that's where, even when things are at their worst, your relationships are their most important. The healthy relationships are their most important for you, because it's those things where, soggy. All right, we'll do push-up cam here in a second. The reality is that it's our relationships that give us the capacity to do that thing, to make that decision of who's, so Ripped Immerse got one. Oh, more like
ripped.
yeah,
Immersed.
buddy. Idiot Sandwich got one. MLA. Oh, congratulations. Welcome to the gym, MLA. Buddy, no skipping leg day. No skipping leg day. Where's my leg day emotes? There they are. Yeah, my alt got a sub. Love it. Tone 1986 got one. That's nice. Second Amendment got one. Awesome. Glad you guys are all part of the gym now. And give me 2 seconds, Soggy. I'll get you those 25 push-ups, buddy. So I think we undervalue, and I keep saying I think. I got to stop saying that. It's like duty. I say duty way too much, and I say I think way too much. The reality is our relationships determine our successes and failures. It could be our relationships or lack of relationships. Sure. Because if we isolate ourselves, that can be just as catastrophic as surrounding ourselves with the wrong people. And I think, there it is again. Diablo, you're going to make another thing where I'll always just be me saying, I think. For me, my relationship with my grandmother was that one relationship. That in the midst of chaos, in the midst of zero capacity left to deal with that, it was my ability to be lifted by my grandma, my avó, my Portuguese grandmother, that really put me in a spot where I could cope with the everyday. Yeah. The fact that I knew I had somebody that truly loved me, not just loved me, but because my mom loved me, my dad loved me, right? But they didn't truly love me in the sense that the depth of relationship with them wasn't there. Sure. They had me very young and were very immature and very selfish in their willingness to support me. So it was my grandmother that did that for me, you know? Sure. And I think that when we talk about overcoming in being willing to overcome the obstacles that a lot of our students face, it's our relationship. For a lot of our students that we're going to bump into, and that's where the question earlier about ongoing relationships, can students continue to see you? Yeah. That's why we leave that door open, because we want a continued healthy relationship, because although they may be good today, a bump in the road might come later on. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And because we've already built the relationship of trust and obedience and challenge, change, growth, and they know it's safe. Yep. Right? Yep. The reality is they know they can come back and they can pull that card if they need to. They can do that stuff. All right, I got to do push-up. I got to do donut. Puppy, you're gonna have to watch. I don't want to.
Cash, come here, buddy.
I don't want to accidentally kick you.
Come sit down.
All right, Dono Kim. Soggy Waffles. I owe you 25 push-ups, and then I'll do the whole flex wheeler thing when we get back. do me a favor. Talk about what you're studying in school and
Sure.
your major and all that kind of stuff, and how close you are, because I think that's an important thing. While I do this for the masses.
Okay. Come here, Kat. So yeah, I am in grad school. I got a bachelor's in social work. I graduated last year. So my master's is in social work, and I will be done in July. So yeah, it's super exciting. Super exciting. I'm ready to get out in the private practice world and do what I need to do.
Do you know where you're going?
My internship right now that I am my supervisor that I'm through, she'll continue to supervise me. So I'll be able to take, and that's like you said, relationships and such, and making those connections. The clients that I've taken on through that private practice now, I'll be able to keep. So, and that was a lot, and you might not be surprised, but a lot of people come in and they say, hey, I want somebody and I want to make sure I'm going to have them for a long time, because I don't want to get, a few months in, spill my guts, and then all of a sudden they leave.
Yeah.
Or all of a sudden, they can't see me anymore, or for whatever the reason may be, but that is huge to them, is they need that security. They need that relationship. So
Everyone wants to see the puppy.
Oh, let's see.
Will she come up?
Come on, Cash. Up here. Come on. Can you look up here? Can you say hi?
Look at the eyes on this dog.
Yeah.
They're
Look
just-
over here.
They're awesome.
Boy, yeah. Yeah, he's a good dog.
So, for those that joined late, explain the puppy and why
Sure.
why he's here.
Oh, okay. So, Cash is my dog. Me and my husband. We got him when we first started dating. Well, actually, he got him, and I was just around. And then he has just always had an incredible temperament. He is loyal. He's got an old soul. He's just a good dog. And when I went down this road of wanting to be a therapist, I started looking at the idea of having a dog work with me, right? Yep, he's an Australian Shepherd. He's a blue merle. That's where he gets the beautiful eyes and the cool coloring. Where was I going with that? Okay, so, I kind of looked at how I could get him certified to actually sit in sessions with me and sit with clients, because, there is something so sacred about having an animal and petting them, and just that level of unconditional comfort and love.
That's the unconditional love.
It
that
is.
True
It is
love.
that true love, and just the kids. He'll jump right up on the couch with the kids and sit next to them, and just that pressure of like, let me just lay on your lap. They're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so yeah, my husband and I trained him, and he went through a pretty rigorous test to be certified with Therapy Dogs International. And so yeah, now he just comes in. I'm so thankful to have the opportunity to bring him here and let the kids love on him, and he loves on the kids, and it's just awesome. It's awesome.
So one of the amazing things about Kate for us is the fact that not only does she feel a need for us socially and emotionally for us and the students, is we had actually been talking about getting a Rise Above pet for a long time, and we just keep thinking, how do we do that though? Like,
Right.
how do we get a dog or a cat or whatever here? Because the reality is, somebody has to own that dog
Exactly.
or cat.
Oh,
right?
yeah, I can't
We
just
have to,
be here.
because we're not here all the time, right? So, and when you came on board and you said you had this amazing young dog to bring into to Rise Above, we're like, heck yeah.
Oh yeah. They were like, oh yeah, bring him in.
All
I'm like,
over that.
okay.
Yeah. I mean, because I agree with you guys, especially Fawcett. What you're saying is that, it's impossible to feel bad with a dog to pet. It's one of those things where you cannot deny. So there's I don't know what you know about this, or if you've read anything on this or not, but one of the things that we've thought about doing here as well is there is an elementary school just across the way here.
Yep.
And we've thought about taking our high schoolers particularly over there to read to the students,
Yeah.
to read to them. Because there's something about animals, young kids, and the elderly that automatically calms everybody,
Yep.
right? It
Yep.
changes our responses. And I think it's that innate thing in us that, because we all want to love and be loved.
Yep.
And what old person, You know, when they see a young, oh, look at you, cute little, I'm on a
Yeah.
picture. You know, that whole, it's the same thing with when you see a dog, you want to pet a dog.
Right.
You, oh, I want to touch the
I
dog.
want to touch it. Yeah.
You know, it's the same thing. And when you see a baby, everyone's like, oh, you know, I want to touch the so cute little baby.
Yeah.
Most babies. But the reality is, there's something I believe inherently in us that wants to love and be loved.
Absolutely.
To kind of wrap up today and to summarize the point, I think that our gift to each other couldn't be any more obvious. It is not our financial blessings. It is not our gold and silver. It is not our gifts. It's the ability to love each other well, or to love each other lavishly, that bestows the greatest encouragement, the greatest restoration. Soggy. Babies. That to me is what brings about the greatest level of change, is when we can. Now, I'm oversimplifying in the sense that I'm saying it's easy to love well. There are people that are difficult to love. I am not denying that.
Right.
I have met several of them. In fact, I believe I am possibly one of them. But the reality is, it does not change any more or less the importance on each other to do our best to make sure, little mud makers.
That's
good.
funny.
That's good, Soggy.
That is good.
To do our best to reach each other in ways that I think is getting, Neil is very hard to love, that is getting harder and harder to do with some of the technology that we have, because of the understanding that we have of love languages and those sorts of things. There is a small portion of society that will respond in a deep emotional way through love that comes through technology, and only technology. If we do not have the other elements of loving well in place, if we lose that art, it's almost like telling time without a digital watch,
Yep.
right?
Absolutely.
And what's the other thing we're losing right now? The ability to write in cursive.
Yeah.
Right? That's what technology has stolen from us. The ability to tell time on analog.
Yep. That's a skill these days.
My kids literally can't read a normal clock, right? And they can't write their name.
Yeah.
Now, my youngest guy can, because he went to a private school and learned cursive, right?
Yeah.
They still teach it at darn technology. Yeah. Right? And so the reality is, you know, unless we practice these things on a regular basis. Using
What
what
is a landline?
I literally looked at because I still have one. I literally looked at mine last night and thought, what am I doing?
Why
with
do
it?
I
Why
still have that?
This has got to be costing me something, right?
Yeah.
So, Kate, any final words before we sign
I'm just
off today?
super happy to be here. Thankful for the good conversation, and appreciate it.
Well, and again, I would say to all of you folks that have been here today, and we've had several different groups come through today, waves of different people. Thanks for coming in and joining us. You guys were a little quieter than normal today, but I believe it's just because the topic was probably a little deeper than normal. Love is, you know, Neil still has a rotary phone. The reality is, brother. No, I'm just kidding you there. You know, and I think that's a big part of the conversation. Sometimes some conversations are going to be easier than others, and I'm just thankful that we can have these conversations in the environment that we do, and without the challenges. But
I agree.
Thank you, Kate. I appreciate the fact of you coming on stream, and not only coming on stream, but also the fact that you do what you do for our students, and you give sacrificially in the way that you do.
Thank you for the opportunity. I mean, I wouldn't have it if it wasn't for Rise Above, so I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, and back
I'm
to
lucky.
work.
Yeah.
And thanks for bringing your puppy in. Puppy is always
anytime.
a blessing to us.
Anytime.
So thank you, everybody. Jay, get back to work, buddy. I'm sure there's some math or Spanish or something calling you. I know there is.
Math, he's got to finish it today.
Yeah, get her done. Same to everyone else that's tuned in from downstairs or upstairs for that matter. And all you guys from around the world that join us each week to watch me muddle through my latest thought and ideologies.
You don't need math.
I appreciate all you guys and the success that you help me bring about to to rise above. To all who donated, either subs or participated today, thank you very much for your follows and your subs. Soggy, thanks for the 5 gifted. What else did we have today? We had Renee Fournier followed today, and Nappy resubbed. So thanks a lot, guys and girls. Appreciate you all. And hang out for 2 seconds. I'm going to throw you guys over to who's streaming right now. Is my boy Choco streaming? Yeah, let's raid Choco. Say hi to Choco. Spam a bunch of Risk Emergency emotes. Let that guy know. Just because he hangs around the OG Pickle, he isn't cooler than the OG Pickle. Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all, and a lot of Risk Emerge hearts for Choco Taco. Please, guys. Thanks. See you next Monday. Bye.
Bye.